Okay, so yesterday we did the slightly confusing sugya that I still don't necessarily have full understanding of, but that's okay, of why you have the Shittot of Beis Hillel, Beis Shammai, 3 which is 6, 4 which is 8, or 8 which is 16, in terms of the number of strings. What I want to do today, it'll either take us 1 or 2 days, I don't know, we'll see, is the question of whether you're allowed to add to your tzitzis strings. So we saw some of this when Rosenzweig gave shir on Baal Tosef, and we're going to see that Gemara in just a minute. But let's take this in order. So on Memalef and Beis, the Gemara says at the top, 2 lines from the top of the page, Tan Rabbanan. Take it, Daniel. Second line.
Taner Rabbanan Talis Shekulo. Talis is fully made out of wool.
It's made of tchelet. Shekula tchelet.
Right. Call Minei Tzibun that has any type of color on it.
Call Minei Tzibun, and all colors pocher ba. Right, you can put any color on it. Chutz
mi color ilan, except for indigo.
Okay. I was debating, but I'm just not gonna. I want to move on from tzitzis at this point. So, but if you're interested in the science, you can look online. Dr. Ari Zivotofsky has an article on Kala Ilan, on whether it really is indigo, and he goes through all the science, and it's a nice little piece. But all in English. You can read it. It'll summarize all the scientific background to this. Okay. But you can put anything except for, let's assume for now, Kala Ilan is indigo, which is the fake tchelet. Okay.
Basically. Talis ain putter, but Elamina. Talis isn't putter.
Right, only
exempts.
It's tight.
Right. Talis shekula tcheles was made fully out of tcheles. Mi by tcheles.
Maybe tchelet the rachas. You have to bring tchelet and something else. V'tolava. Right, we call it Ilan lo yaviv, it may be kasher. Right, so the first one it says you can't bring kal Ilan. The second one you shouldn't, but if you do, it's still going to work.
Right. Amar of Nachum bar Yitzchak, lo kasher, that's not a problem. Kam b'cheles ba arba chutin, kam b'cheles ba shmona. 1 at 4 and 1 at 8.
So look at Rashi.
I don't understand how that solves the problem though.
So look at Rashi. That's a strange ring on your phone.
The other one was like an actual siren that would freak people out.
Why don't you just get what every other adult on the planet has, a regular ringtone?
That same annoying ringtone that everybody has.
Yeah.
So, what does Rashi say? B'talit bat arba chutin, shnayim chel, shnayim v'kal ilan kasher. If it's 2 and 2, it's kasher. B'talit bar shmona chutim, arba tchelet v'edel ba'arba kal ilan, l'kayim mitzvot shnei minin, psulit. The whole of our kala ilan ika chutin kol tzarcha. Chayshin and dilma matzrich letalda charisei v'shak ilhani detcheles mehachi v'tali lahasam v'leka hacha elakala ilan inami shakalhana kol ilan v'tali ba. So Rashi says the difference is as follows: if you just have a regular tzitzis and you have 2, again this is within Rashi Shita that you need 2 and 2. 2 are real tchelet and 2 are fake tchelet, 2 are indigo. So then that's fine. But if you have a tzitzis which has 8 strings, so then it's a problem. Why is it a problem? So he says the case is going to be where you have 4 tchelet and 4 fake tchelet, 4 kala ilan, because you need 2 minim. That's possible because you already have enough strings. So they're not accomplishing any function.
What?
And therefore, we're worried that you might take these and put it on another beged, and you'll think that you put tchelet, but you'll put kala ilan. Meaning, if you have a tzitzis with 4 strings total, 2 are real tchelet and 2 are fake tchelet, Rashi said, not a problem. Because you're not going to take them off this tzitzis. Right? Because it's your tzitzis. So now, 2 of them count as tcheles, and 2 of them count as lavan. Because remember, lavan can be any color. Lavan doesn't mean white per se. We did that earlier in the year. But pashtos is that lavan doesn't mean just white. It means anything which is not chelet. But if you have 4 and 4, meaning 8, which is 16, not 4, which is 8, but 8, which is 16. So then what are we worried about? That you'll say, look, those are extras. Let me just take them off because I now have 2 4-cornered begadim. I already have an extra 4 strings in every corner of my tzitzis. So let me take off half of them, and then I'll have 2 kosher tzitzis. But the problem is, you're not going to know which one's tchelet and which one's fake tchelet, so you might end up taking all fake tchelet, and that's going to be a problem. So that's how Rashi understands it. I don't want to get too much into that. The particulars of this gzeira, but if the simple pshat in this Gemara is that let's say you had 8 strings.
The Gemara says the opposite, though.
What?
Meaning, in the first case of the Gemara says that you can't take indigo, right? And then at the end of the Gemara, it says
you shouldn't, but if you do, it's kosher.
Right, but then
so the Gemara said it's a stira.
When it solves the kasha, it says the first case it brings up, it says it had 4 strings, which means that in the first case where it says you can't take it, in that case there were 4, and in the case where it says you can't take it, there's
Rashi
8. So that's the exact opposite of what Rashi.
You're right. Rashi flips it. Rashi flips it in terms of order, which is not always the biggest deal. But you're right. He does flip it. But the simple pshat in this Gemara is that if I want to add to my tzitzis strings, am I allowed to?
Yes.
100%. The only problem is if I have extra strings which are dyed with kala ilan, which are dyed with this indigo. But if they're dyed white, or not dyed, as the case may be, or they're salmon pink or whatever, so then
would it be just extra strings without the knots, and then just strings?
No, meaning all knotted up with strings. Like in that.
So would you just have 2 of these on each corner, or would this just be twice as big?
It'd be twice as thick.
So there'd be like.
Remember, the only thing that's correct. The only thing that's daraisa is the kesher elyon.
Would there still
but
be,
it wouldn't be 2 kesher elyons. There's 1 kesher elyon.
So let's say if it was the Rama, you'd have 2 techelet strings wrapping around.
That I don't know. Right? I don't know whether.
How do you double it?
So I don't know. Maybe not. Right? Maybe not. Right? If you think it's 1, because maybe it'd still be 1 kotel.
Right? But you just have all the other ones in the middle.
Right. I'm not sure. Probably. Right, probably according to the Rambam, because it's 1 which is wrapping, so it'd be pretty hard to do that with 2. It's 1. But simple pshat of this Gemara is: are you allowed to add to the tzitzis?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just only if it's indigo you can't, and that's how the Sefer Eter takes it. So you'll go to 11. Who's the Sefer Eter? Let's remember. Where's he from?
Where's Nate? He was here today.
He was sick. He came and then he felt sick and he left. He told me he was leaving. What?
Who was it?
Where is the Eter from?
Just going to add to say France.
Which part of France?
Provence.
Thank you. Provence. Southern France. Provence. That has been the answer to a lot of questions this year. Either it's because I quote a lot of Provençals, or I like the Provençals and bother asking biography on the Provençals more.
Have you been to Provence?
No.
They should have.
Have we actually? Was that part of...
That was South France.
Was that Provence? I don't know.
Right? Yeah.
Was that Provence? Like that...
Wait, no. Oh yeah, that was South.
The 100 feet that we went into France? I don't know. For all we know, CERN is on top of the Itter's house, right?
That's right.
It's probably not, but for all I know, it's clearly wrong. I don't think they were near Geneva, but I really have no clue. Could have. We'll have to look it up. So the Itcher says, Avalim Ratzal Lohosif. Bain Binyan, Bain Be'orech. If you want to add number or length of the strings, you are allowed to. V'had Dikdani Mashu, Ashirayim Kdani B'Sefer the Brisa, B'Mermet Chila Shira V'Gardumin, etc. V'hachim Mistabra. This would make sense. Dikdani Lulav Ein Lo Shi'ur, V'adam Ein Lo Shir Lo B'Orech Lo B'Minyan. By lulav, we say there is no maximum length. Number v'chein kasa from Amram bar Sas naresh mitivta devat v'chasya v'tshuvat bedin v'alufin v'chachmei yeshiva shelefanenu b'yeshiva shel adar shnat elef kuf samachtet l'shtara etc. Lulav ein lo shir achanami gabei tzitzit nami ein lo shir lemala. So obviously that means no maximum. There is a minimum. V'shuv matzinu minyan lilulav. Sheyesh lo shir lamata. By lulav we have a minimum size, but no maximum. And he says, by lulav as well, we let you have more than the minimum amount. And he says, people will even put 100 hadassim in the lulav. There's a minimum of 3, but maximum there is none. Do you do this?
Maximum of 3. And
No, minimum of 3.
Minimum of 3?
Of what?
You see this often in some of the Sephardi lulavim,
Hadassim?
that people will just have a million, like the Taimani ones, and when you go to like the Kotel, they have the huge esrogim, and they'll just have like a million hadassim. Just sort of,
We usually have 2 though, right?
Yeah.
no, 3. 2 arava, 3 hadassim.
Oh.
We
Do you do this?
We're sure to do the minimum, yeah.
Of course.
We don't do as hard.
I know you are sure to do the minimum. I'm asking you whether you do extra.
No.
I'm not accusing you of violating halacha, man. Let me see if I can get a picture of it. I'm asking you whether you put...
I never, no, we don't. It's more just cost effectiveness. It's so expensive. It's so expensive.
Yeah, so here they're not. Right here.
Rabbit are pretty cheap.
Rabbit are dirt cheap. They're mamish dirt cheap.
Yeah,
Yeah.
usually they just give them for free sometimes. Or second edition. $5.
And you can find them.
Or you can have like just your own
But
rabbit.
yeah, you usually have to buy $2 books anyway. So you go bad halfway.
You have to buy haravot like every other day. They go bad so quickly.
Yeah, it's not including Hoshana.
Or you just my in-laws just have a...
Not really though, isn't the chiyuv only the first day? So after the first day, it doesn't matter what they look like.
Well,
Really, why do you have
they
to
can't
say
like totally crumble into dust, which is what happens to them.
But if they're like half green and half brown, like you can
they're
use
still
them.
fine. But at some point they get so dry they just like crumble.
What if they get dry but they're still green?
Like liquid nitrogen dry.
What?
What?
Why was that what you just...
How would liquid be? What?
I don't understand why that was what you jumped to. Like, I can't get a picture of it, but if you see sometimes, you'll see that they Temanim will follow this position, and they'll have just a million hadassim. It looks very nice and very intense.
Have you seen
And the
video
esrogim,
of
which
the
are like
guy
this
with
big.
like the whole tree in shul?
It was essentially, yeah.
Oh
Exactly.
yeah,
Yeah, the big. Oh, you mean on Hoshana Rabbah where they come in with
Yeah.
the Hoshana? Yes,
Yeah.
that are like 6 feet tall. Unclear.
That's like hot.
We use 5, right? Something.
Yeah, we use 5. There we use 5. Okay, so he says, "L'chein tzitzit kachu she'en lo shir klal ma'ala." There is no upper limit. Why? What's his proof? Our Gemara.
Hidden mitzvah.
Kan betal bar arba, kan betal bar shmona. Vein ba mishum bal tosef.
Is there an idea of the opposite of hidden mitzvah?
What do you mean?
Like, you only have to beautify the mitzvah, so there's the minimum, but like we can do more, right? But what if doing more doesn't beautify the mitzvah?
Then you can't.
So is there a concept of don't do it because it's the opposite of hidden mitzvah?
Because it makes it look grotesque.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like, for example, what if adding like a ton of strings?
You're like
was
looking at
weird?
Daniel. I don't know what
No, I was
what is
looking-
Daniel doing?
No, I was looking at my tzitzit. If you were like to add like a ton of strings, it would look really weird.
I don't know if it would. I mean, does it look weirder than ours? We just got used to it. We have tassels flying around.
Right, exactly. We're not used to having like, let's say 100 strings.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that would be. Okay. So he says, and that's the same. So therefore, the Itcher just holds. Look, there's no problem with Baltosa. If you're allowed to add tzitzit, it's just there's a minimum and there's no maximum, and that's it. Vani shamati minagskain belulav shivim hadasim keneged shivim humot. And he says, I've heard of people who have 70 hadassim, parallel to the 70 nations of the world. I'm just trying to think how thick of your lulav has to be to put 70 hadassim. That's
A bucket, pretty much.
Yeah.
Why do we
It's a lot, man.
care to parallel with something?
I don't know. People like symbolism. I don't know. You're just saying that's why he knew people who did it. I don't know people who do it. In America, definitely don't do it. It costs you a fortune.
Yeah.
You know, here, not-
70 will.
Our
Yeah, 70
votes
hadassim.
our votes are like $10, at least where we are.
What?
Sometimes. Well, if you don't know how to
A ravot are $10.
If you don't know
Yeah.
how to bargain, yeah.
What?
If you do know how to bargain, you
A
bring it
ravot
to,
are
like,
$10.
3.
What planet are a ravot $10?
Mine.
First of all, growing up, they were always maybe $5, which is also
We should
expensive.
put regulation.
Really, I would just get it from my father-in-law just had a tree. Like they have a tree in their backyard, so just like.
Yeah. Just plant all the trees.
But even like on Hoshana Rabbah, when I got the Aravot, it was 7 shekel.
Right, and our basket also on Shemar Bat is $10.
We just bought it from the rabbi. He had a tree in his backyard, so he just cut down a bunch of them.
Yeah, but 7 shekel is much more reasonable than whatever you're paying. And it's not like arava. You can grow an arava tree in your backyard so easily. You just plant the arava. Have them sprout.
You mean like the seed or
no?
The ones you currently get? You
Yeah.
Plant, like celery, where they just continue growing.
Yeah, exactly. It's exactly what it does. Okay. Now the Rambam seems to agree with the Yitzer. It's not 100% clear, but the Rambam seems to. You want to read me Rambam Hilchot Tzitzit Perak Aleph Halacha Aleph?
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot where the Rambam.
Yeah.
Oh cool.
I'm gonna keep going for past that.
Confused all these.
No, that's pushing Mishnah out. Looking upside down is not helping me here. Ein Mishpat.
Read upside down.
What?
Oh, here, okay.
What'd you say?
You don't know how to read upside down.
I do know how to read upside down.
Oh.
But tiny little print upside down on the big Gemara on the other side of the table is not my ideal rating. I can do it, but it's a bit of a strain. And it's harder to speed read that way.
Practice makes perfect.
Yes. Darius gave me one of these speed reading tests last week. It was hysterical.
On what?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I took another one at home. Just,
Like online?
Yes. Well, he wanted to know how fast I speed read. I was. I was in the top.
How was it graded?
It's how many, you press start when you start the passage, stop when you end the passage, and then you take a comprehension test. And the top 1% of readers can read over 1,000 words a minute with about 85% comprehension.
1,000 words.
So that was what I had. I had the 2 tests I took were either 1,038 words a minute or 1,138 words a minute at 80 some odd percent.
My dad's like that. He's crazy fast.
I'd be lucky if I get 60 words a minute.
Yeah. It was interesting to take a test. I've never done it.
Wow. All right.
But I can't do it upside down backwards on tiny print on the other side of the table that fast.
Actually fun, upside down or backwards or anything.
And I can read it, the speed reading.
I read my book.
This is so not the point. It doesn't really matter. Anyways, what does the Rambam say?
The Rambam says, "Enough."
That reminds me that there were people. I forget who was telling me about this. That people only read backwards or upside down because they grew up.
Oh, that's a big thing with
Right. They grew up with one Gemara, so whatever angle you used to sit at, you got used to reading from that angle. So
I guess if you're not conditioned from first reading like this, then it's
doesn't
the
matter.
same thing as learning.
Exactly.
That's how you
Yeah.
read reading.
Okay. So what does the Rambam say?
Anav she'osin al knaf habeged, mamin habeged, hu hanikra tzitzis mipnei shehu doma letzitzis shel rosh. You want to translate that?
Yes.
Okay. If the corner of the beged is made of the same type as the regular the whole beged, what's nikra?
So it's anaf shows an aknaf, right? The tzitzis essentially. Aganaf beged mimin ha beged. They have to be the same material.
Yeah.
Remember that? Hanikra tzitzit. That's what we call tzitzit. Mipnei she domel tzitzit shorosh, because it's things that hang off your head, right? Strings, hair. Shneamar vayikacheni v'tzitzit roshi v'zeh anaf hu nikra lavan v'pnei she'ein anu mitzuvin litzovo. And this is that we talked about before, that the simple pshat is the anaf is white because you don't have to dye it, and white doesn't mean white, it means no obligation to make it colorful. Ve'ein l'chutei ha'anaf rather, minyan min ha'torah. And there is no number to this anaf min ha'torah, which sounds very much like the Yitzer. You can put as many as you want. And that's indeed the simplest pshat, I think, in our Gemara in Menachot.
Imagine tzitzis are black sheep.
Go ahead.
That'd be so cool. Black tzitzis.
People do that.
Really?
People wear black talis, and it really is
completely
it's
black?
really intense, yeah.
I've never seen that.
You've never seen that?
I've seen the black stripe.
No, there was someone in my parents' shul growing up who had a black one. One had a black and one had a purple one.
I've seen like colorful ones or like
No,
different
completely.
shades of purple and blue, but not even the full thing. Like
No, black. Here's
Just a lot of
black.
stripes.
I've seen a lot of like rainbow ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like the blue. White's very white one's really very. Why is that?
No, but there's some. Here.
Oh, why the heck would I even wear that?
I know it's very intense.
It's
very
ugly.
Huh.
Totally black
Really,
stars.
It's ew.
Oh wow.
It's like not my thing at all. Whoa, that is so intense. No, not my style at all.
That's a talus.
Yeah, that's $1.
Wow.
You can draw things on
That's silk with a. My God, look at these.
it. It's all kosher, right? Is that kosher?
Yeah.
What color do your tzitzit have to be?
Anyways, purple. Okay. The Gemara, though, that calls this into question is the Gemara in Sanhedrin. So you look at number 13. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says, Mishnah Chomer b'divrei sofrim b'divrei Torah. There are certain stringencies that are attached to rabbinic law over biblical. This is in the context of Zaken Mamre. What's a Zaken Mamre? Or a Zaken Mamre?
An old, smart person.
A rebel, a member of the Sanhedrin, someone worthy of being the Sanhedrin, who rules contrary to the Sanhedrin or acts against the Sanhedrin. So the Mishnah says, "Omer ein tefillin gedei la'avor al divrei Torah patur." If he says there is no tefillin, so that's patur. That's not even a psak. Chamesh totafot lahosif al divrei sofrim. But if he says there are 5, you should put 5 tefillin. So that tweak, right, add to the rabbinic interpretation of the tefillin, the parsha and the tefillin. So then he's chayav. So Amar Rabbi Elazar, Amar Rabbi Oshia, Enu chayav elo davar she'ikaro midivrei Torah u'perusho midivrei sofrim. V'yesh bo lehosif im hosif goreya. One is only liable where the core of the halacha is biblical, with rabbinic extrapolation, rabbinic interpretation, and there is something that could be added, but by adding you detract. Meaning, kalamosif, if you add numerically goreya, you will prevent the fulfillment of the mitzvah because that's no longer the mitzvah, because the mitzvah is the lower number, and now you've changed it by adding. And what is the example? So, example 1, Ein lanu ela tefillin ali b'Rabbi Yehuda. Possibility 1 is only tefillin according to Rabbi Yehuda. Gemara says, really? V'ikal lulav, di'ikaro midivrei Torah, u'perusho midivrei sofrim, v'yishbo l'osif imosif goreya. So he said, what about lulav? So he said, no, b'lulav my svirlan. Isvirlan de lulav ein sarech eged. Said by lulav, if you hold that the lulav does not need to be bound together, so then, even if you add extra minim onto your lulav, it won't invalidate the lulav because there's nothing that makes everything in your hand a single hefza. Right? So if I hold 2 lulavim in my hand, but I don't think the lulav needs to be bound together, so it's as if I'm just holding 2 lulavim, not a 2 lulav bunch. And therefore, it doesn't invalidate it. It's stupid, but it doesn't invalidate it. V'isvir lan sarach eged. But if you think you do need to tie it, so garu of omedu, you've invalidated it. Because kalmos of goreya, because now you have a 2 lulav bundle, which is pasul. V'ika tzitzit, ikaro midivrei Torah, pe'yosho midivrei sofrim, v'yesh bo lo'osiv imosiv goreya. And the same thing is true of tzitzit. B'tzitzit my svirulon, because he's svirulon to kesher elyon lav doraita. If you think that you don't have to tie the upper knot, so then there's nothing to combine all the strings. So would your tzitzit be kasher?
Yeah.
Yes. Because hayluch hudekai v'hayluch hudekai. It's not 8 strings, it's 4 plus 4. The 4 are kasher and the 4 are superfluous. The isvirul on the kesher elyon doraita. And if you hold that the upper knot is in fact biblical, so garu of omei. So by tying it all together, now you have invalidated it. So now the two examples that the Isser had.
It's the Deraisa is just
No, it's a machlokas.
Until where?
No, it's a machlokas in our Gemara. We halacha we pass it that way, but in the Gemara it's a machlokas. So what does the Gemara in Sanhedrin say? That both of the examples of the Yitter, are you allowed to add? No. The only question is, will you invalidate it by adding? And that depends on a local machlokas in each, which is by tzitzis if kesher elyon daraisa. So then, since you will now be making it one unit by tying it all together, so if you add a fifth string, a sixth string, a seventh string, an eighth string, a 10th string, it's not just a problem, but it's invalidated, and it's baltosif.
The Rambam holds that as Deraisa, and yet he says you can add.
Oh, okay. So what do we do with it? Both by lulav and by tzitzis, which are just two examples, the Gemara in Sanhedrin seems to be pretty clear that it's possible.
Yeah.
So, how do we deal with the stira and the sugya? So tell me, how do we deal with the stira and the sugya? So one possibility is, what's the easiest way to deal with it? Machloket sugya. Machloket sugya.
Meaning?
That the two sugya don't agree. Now you could do this in a very, if you wanted to, you could do it in the following way. You could say, it's mutter if, the Gemara in Sanhedrin gives you a possible way out, which is to say, if you hold lulav ein sarach eged, but the lulav doesn't have to be bound together, and you hold that tzitzis don't need a kesher elyon, so then what does the Gemara in Sanhedrin say?
So it's fine.
Then it's fine. So you could say that it's a machloket.
The first Gemara says the kesher elyon is not deraisa.
Right, you could just say that it depends. If you hold kesher elyon daraisa, so then you can't add. Right. If you hold that lulav tzarech eged, you can't add. If you hold ein tzarech eged and you think that kesher elyon is not daraisa, so that means that they're all standalone, so it's fine. Right, that would be one way of just saying it's a machloket asugya. And then you could say maybe the Itter just paskins like
It's there.
the Gemara in Menachot, and we'll see Sefer Mitzvot Katan, the Smak, in 14 paskins straight up like the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Look at 14. Shalol hosef al mitzvot. There is a prohibition of adding to mitzvot. Tichtiv lo tosif alav. Kagon lasot chamesh batim betfilin chamesh chutin betzitzit shem asar shem koflim. He just says you're not allowed to add, so you can't have 10 strings. Five which is 10. Zeo. Done. End of story. Now that doesn't explain it fully because we know that the Rambam thinks you can have extra strings, but he also holds that Kesher Elyon D'Oraisa. So you could just say that it's a different machlokas. Right? You could say it's a machlokas sugyot, meaning are you allowed to add? Maybe one shita just holds. Right? It could be just a local machlokas, which is, do you hold that tzitzis is 4 total or 4 minimum? Right? That could just be the machloket. Right? We often have that. Right? Meaning, that could just be the machloket. Is 4 a minimum or is 4 the number? Right? That could be the machloket. Why would you say one way? Why would you say the other way? I don't know. It depends on how you understand the drasha that we talked about yesterday. Meaning, is that defining it? Is that saying a minimum of that? That would be another way of taking this. Another possibility, and again, I don't want to do this too much because we talked about this a lot in that same Shir by Rosenzweig. You could say that it depends on your intent. If you remember, he pointed out that for the Rambam, intent is very important by Baltosif. And maybe the question is,
intent is not Baltosif.
If your intent is, look, I like a lot of strings, but I'm not redefining the mitzvah, so maybe it's fine.
Well, nobody knows it here.
Correct. But I'm just saying theoretical possibilities here, right? You could say that it depends. Right? If I intend to add, so then it's possible. If I just say, look, I like the look of extra stuff, but I understand that it's not halachic, it's just for looks, so maybe that's fine. Right? Maybe that's fine. Maybe you're allowed to, as long as you understand that it's decorative. If you think that Baltosif is that much psychologically So you could say that there's no machloket asugya. You could say there's machloket asugya and paskin like the Menachot one. You could say there's machloket asugya and paskin like Sanhedrin. You could say that the machloket is local to tzitzis. You could say it's about baltosif. You could say it's about lulav tzarach eged and kesher elyon, like the Gemara in Sanhedrin points out. Right? These are all possibilities. So let's look at the Rashba and the Ran. I don't know if we're going to have time for Tosfos today. So we may have to finish it tomorrow. There is a third possibility, and that's Tosfos. If you remember, Tosfos is in the first daf, but if you haven't done it, I want you to look back at it. He has a compromised position. But before we get to Tosfos, let's flesh out these two, because basically what we're presenting now is two poles, meaning either you can add infinitely, or you can't add it all, and then it's a question of psak, and maybe there's a contradiction. And as we saw, the Itcher is on one side of this equation, the Rambam seems to be on that same side of the equation, and the Smak's on the other. Let's look at the Rashba. So the Rashba in Chelek Aleph Tshuva Tov Samachet writes as follows: Sha'alta od b'shloshim u'shnayim chutim she'b'tzitzit. You asked about the 32 strings in the tzitzit. Why are there 32 strings in the tzitzit?
You mean in the whole beged?
Yes, thank you. 4 times 8. I was just making sure you're awake there, right? That's simple mathematics. Yes, you all know that simple mathematics. I'm sure you all learned that 4 times 8 is 32.
Of course, PEMDAS.
What?
PEMDAS.
I'm glad for arithmetic. V'chein v'esrim v'ksharim, and the 20 knots. Im hosiv al minyanin im hupasal. If I add to those, is it invalid? Oshanemar she'en lam shir lamala kemo b'shlosh hadasim shalulav. Now the Rashba, you see, already distinguishes, because in the Gemara and Sanhedrin, it sounds like they're the same, and the Itcher it sounds like the same.
Yeah.
Right? The Itcher says you can add hadasim, you can add tzitzis, and the Gemara and Sanhedrin parallels them. But the person asking the Rashba assumes that by hadasim there's no maximum. Add as many as you want. And he wants to know whether the same is by tzitzis, which already highlights that, again, these don't necessarily go together. They're parallel, but not conceptually equivalent. So the Rashba says, Tshuva. Tshuva was Let me answer you in backwards order. Amarta she'ilu ve'ilu ikaran midivrei Torah. You said that both tzitzis and lulav are biblical. I see that you've not paid attention to sheminyanak sharim einan midivrei Torah. He said, first let me just clarify that you equated the question of adding strings to adding knots. He's like, that's not equivalent. The knots are clearly not da'araisa. The only thing that might be da'araisa is kesher elyon.
Right.
But the 5 knots after that is not. So please, whatever you're asking, he's like, let me clarify that I'm going to answer you about the strings and not the knots. The knots.
But the Gemara talks about how many knots.
Correct, but they're not da'araisa. Right? So he says, please don't get into that. He says, "Vafilu b'kesher elyon lo amro sheyedar tel eminasher darshu mishum dechtiv lo til bashat nizdilim daselach hashak tramin and da'araisa." And he said, even the kesher elyon, that's not about. Right, that's about connecting to the beged because of the kilayim issue. Right, this is good chazara. Right, the reason we know kesher elyon daraisa is because we know that tzitzis would be a theoretical problem of kilayim, which means that it must be that it's attached to the beged. But it's not about the knot per se; it's about the attaching. Remember that?
Right. End process when you tie it.
It's about it's about being attached. So now he goes to the previous point, and he says, and now what you asked me about tzitzis and compared it to hadassim, shemosif and alav ein zaklum. Devade ba'arba minan shebelulav amru b'gemara sheyesh ben mishum baltosif ben b'minan shelo b'mina. Because by the arba minim, there's a isser of baltosif. Whether you add more of the same min or another species. And even according to the position that you don't need to tie it together, and he says, and even if ein tzarech eged, you can't add. Is that a problem? Yes, because what did the Gemara and Sanhedrin say? That if Ein Sarach Eged, is there a problem to add? No. So how does the Rashba defend it? Tell me before I even look at it. Tell me how to defend the Rashba. He's about to address this. He's not stupid, right? But how does he defend it? He says, Va'al titeh, yeah. He said, maybe that Gemara is only telling you what?
It's only talking about that.
Mosif Goreya. Right? Meaning, it's not about whether you violate Bal Tosif. If you intend to add to the mitzvah, you always violate Bal Tosif. It's just that if you hold that they don't have to be tied together, so it won't prevent you from being Mekayim the mitzvah. Meaning you'll fulfill the mitzvah lulav and violate Bal Tosif, because it's as if you're holding one lulav, check, and you're holding an extra lulav, X. But if you have to tie them together, then it's only Bal Tosif.
Bal Tosif from the original mitzvah.
Correct. So he's saying the Gemara in Sanhedrin isn't saying that if you don't hold you have to tie it together, that it's no problem. It is a problem. It's just...
It's two separate. You're still doing...
Correct. It's a mitzvah and an isser. But it's not... The Gemara in Sanhedrin is just telling you under what circumstances is Mosif, which is Goreya. So therefore he says, don't tell me don't make a mistake about what it says in Sanhedrin. De'eno na says Zokin Mamre Achiro B'dar Shikar Benatar B'Shuv Devisar Reish V'Hosiv Emosiv Goreya V'lo Ashkan El Tfilin V'Li B'Di Rehuda Ilu Lulav Man Tzarech Erged Goreya V'Omedu Man Tzarech Erged Hani Ban Pei Nafshi Koi V'Ayin Hai Ban Pei Nafshi Koi. Right? That whole Gemara don't make that. Don't let that make you make a mistake. You understood that sugya incorrectly and said, if I take two lulavs, then I didn't even violate Bal Tosif. Let the mishum Bal Tosif. Vaday ika. That's not true. There is Bal Tosif for sure. What's the Gemara saying Sanhedrin? Lo amru ella im natlu im yatsa ba'olav. It's just asking, if you take this new double lulav, did you fulfill your mitzvah of lulav or not? And there he says, the man damar tzarech eged geruva omedu. If you need to tie it together, so now you've made an invalid chefza called a double lulav. And therefore, you're not mekayim a mitzvah and violate an isser, you only violate Bal Tosif. Because what you have now is not a lulav, it's a double lulav. It's a chefza shel double lulav. Ulaman damar einu tzarech eged, but if you hold you don't need to tie it together, ain't a garua. It doesn't subtract. It's still usser because you tried to add, but you also fulfilled the mitzvah along the way because it didn't integrate into the lulav which you're using for the mitzvah. This
is the beginning of Perek Shlishi in Sukkah.
Yeah. Well, the beginning of the third parak is stealing, but
doesn't know about Eged.
Also, yes, it does appear there. It appears in the first parak, it appears in the third parak. So now he says, wait a second. So he holds, that whether you hold Ein Tzarech Eged or Tzarech Eged, are you allowed to add a lulav? No.
But if you do, and you don't need Eged, then...
But now what about Hadassim? So he says, you misunderstand. The reason that you're allowed to add to Hadassim is a completely different reason. It's unique to Hadassim, and it's because... He says, "Ela shebahadas ein zeh mishum Bal Tosif mishum hulenoi v'chol neotom mutar." Said you misunderstand. Hadassim is unique because you think that you're adding Hadassim and integrating into the mitzvah, and that's okay. Said you're wrong. You can never add to any of the arba minim, whether or not you need eged.
The reason you're adding
l'shem mitzvah, that's Bal Tosif. It's about kavanah.
You're adding them for beauty.
For beauty. There's a special halacha by Hadassim that if you add Hadassim for beauty, it's mutter. Now this highlights, according to the Rashba, what's the central issue here? Your intent. Because it's saying even if I do eged, it doesn't matter. It's not going to be goreya in this particular case with Hadassim, because there's two points. One is that my intent is lanoi, and the second is that's legitimate.
Where's that rule from?
And he says, where did they get this from? Because he says it's just like all the people in Yerushalayim who would tie gold around their lulav. So you put extra hadassim. Because it's a hadas, now you can't use a hadas to make it beautiful.
No,
you can put gold.
That's different, though.
You're right, you could. If we were learning...
Gold is obviously for beauty.
You're right.
Not necessarily.
If we were learning sukkah, we would go more into this particular argument in the Rashba. But for our purposes, his argument is, look, you can never whenever you intend to answer the mitzvah, whether or not it integrates in the Chet Shal mitzvah, it's Bal Tosef. If it integrates into the mitzvah, not only is it Bal Tosef, right?
You also didn't do that.
But you forget, but you are prevented from being Mekayim the mitzvah. Hadassim don't integrate. You're allowed to use them just like you're allowed to tie gold. You don't say, well, I tied the gold around my lulav, so now it's integrated into the lulav and made it invalid. So he argues that the same is true of Hadassim. But he says, so he said, but now let's come back to your original question. Because now I've explained to you everything by lulav. Right? If I add a second lulav, always asur. If I add a second lulav and hold lulav sarach eged, asur and prevents you from being makayim the mitzvah. Hadassim are unique because as long as I add them with the intent to beautify, it's no different than gold. Again, we could go through that sugya, but unfortunately we're not doing that now. Maybe do it in afternoon seder when you are learning sukkah. You can focus on that sugya. But what about strings? Im nosif vadai pasul. If you add strings, invalid. V'isa b'hishmaitzo damri nasam v'ika tzitzis dikar m'devei Torah peishim m'devei sofrim v'yesh b'lo zmos goreya v'dachid v'tzitzis ma'isrilin kasher elyon da'reisa g'rov v'omedu mishum d'kamelin kasher elyon da'reisa. It says by tzitzis it's always asur, and it is goreya because we hold kasher elyon is da'reisa, and therefore you're never allowed to add. Period. End of story. So it could be that he would just have to reject the Gemara in Menachot and Paskin like the Gemara in Sanhedrin. And again, how would he explain the Gemara in Sanhedrin? Sorry, in the Menachot. Maybe he'd say that holds Kasher Elyon Lav Da'reisa, or maybe he would think that Shita holds that just like by Hadassim, you're allowed to add for beauty. Maybe it's a machlokes whether you're allowed to add strings or not. And we Paskin you can't. Right, all these formulations are.
The same thing. If he's going to want to say you can add hadassim for beauty, then you should be able to do the same thing. Because if he's already going to equate hadassim with gold, then strings are no different. It's kind of hard to say they're not.
Correct. You might have to judge each mitzvah. Now, it could be because hadassim are beautiful, so therefore they lend themselves to being noi, and extra strings, as you said, doesn't that get grotesque at some point? Could it just look like too much? Maybe.
Well, it's same. It's very very subjective point. B, the same thing is with hadassim. If I add 100 hadassim, it might look grotesque. Just if I add 100 strings, if I add 2, no one's going to notice the difference. Unlikely. If I added a string to this, you would not be able to tell.
Correct. So again, you'd have to figure out why you think that by you'd have to really understand the mitzvah of lulav to understand why hadassim could be added for beauty.
I think the only way to say
it could be that lulav is a mitzvah which itself it lends itself for beautification.
That's only esrog though.
Well, we talked about that. If you remember, we talked about it a little bit earlier in the year of whether that special chiyuv hadar spills over beyond just esrog to the whole mitzvah. Correct. It defines esrog, but we talked about the extent to which it spills over and defines the mitzvah. Is it just the pri? Is this a unique type of hitter? Remember, we talked about this when we did by Sefer Torah. It's primarily by esrog. Could it be that it spills over? Probably not, but maybe it does.
I think the easiest way to explain it is that the Gemara Menachot it holds Lav Kasher Elyon.
And that's definitely possible. Now, the question of whether then you would have to get into whether the Gemara Menachot means that it's mutter or just doesn't invalidate. Right? Remember, the Rashba assumes.
What's the difference?
Because according to the Rashba, even Ein Sarach Eged, you violate Bal Tosef if you try to have 2 lulavim. It's just that it doesn't invalidate it. So now you'd have to figure out. According to you, you'd be arguing maybe the Gemara Menachot is saying you shouldn't do it.
Well,
but if you did it, it wouldn't be bad. But the Gemara sounds much worse than that.
According to the Rashba, you'd have to say that it's mutter, just like adding hadassim is mutter.
No, he says it isn't. He says Daka it's not. He distinguishes.
I don't know why.
Right? He thinks that by hadassim you're allowed to because of beauty, and by tzitzis you're not. Again, is that because there's no din of beauty, or because added strings don't add beauty in the way hadassim do? I don't know. He clearly conceptualizes the mitzvahs differently. But in terms of being miyashiv, the 2 Gemara, it would be very hard to say. It's very hard to read the Gemara in Menachot the way the Rashba reads the Gemara in Sanhedrin, which is it's usher, but it doesn't invalidate. The Gemara in Menachot sounds more like if you want to have an 8-string tzitzis, go ahead.
Yeah.
But At any rate, this is how the Rashba defends his interpretation. So, like the Smak Halacha, he errs in favor of the Gemara in Sanhedrin. Again, it could be a Machloket HaSugyot. It could be that the Machloket is Kesher Elyon, Lav Kesher Elyon. It could be it's a Machloket whether you think 4 means minimum 4 or that is the number. It could be that it's a Machloket whether there's such a thing as adding beautification, right? The way the Rashba conceptualizes Hadassim, you could say the same thing as a Machloket HaSugyot. Here, look at one more Shita. The Ran says, "Mikan avit yufta l'Rashi v'Arambam zal d'vador adam menachal b'kamatz rabba d'bi ribu yechut u'mafter tzitzit." So this contradicts Rashi, because remember, Rashi and our Sugya clearly understands that how many strings are you allowed to have? You're allowed to add. Yeah. And the Rambam, we said, simple pshat is in limit. You can have as many as you want. That's what the Rambam says. The efshir le'litaretz l'divreihem del olam b'ribichut olam mifsal tzitzit hein chet o asara u'bilvad shiu min hara'ui lihyot hein mitzemar u'pishtim av'hayu chutim b'minyanam haroi mitzem or b'yoshev ha'otzim imachute cannabis or min acher b'chiyah gabna mifso b'chiyah b'nai marachi dika mishum bal tosef. The Ran gives a very hard answer. The Ran says maybe it depends. You're allowed to add strings as long as they are wool or linen. They're the type of material you're allowed to make tzitzis from. Then you can add as many as you want. So what's the Gemara in Sanhedrin talking about? Where you added
cotton,
something else, some other thing. So that's how the Ran is miyashiv the stira. That the Gemara in Menachot says you can add as many strings that are of the right material.
The even bring that case in the first place?
Correct. It's odd because in the Gemara in Sanhedrin it says being b'minan being shelo b'minan in the context of lulav. So you would think that the same thing would be true of tzitzis. But that's how the Ran wants to be miyashiv the stira because the Ran recognizes there's a contradiction. Right? There's a stira between Sanhedrin and Menachot. So again, we've explained like 5 different ways of explaining the machlokes, and then you can paskin like Sanhedrin and paskin like Menachot. Yeah.
Maybe the difference is that by lulav, you have one lulav. That's what you're doing. But tzitzis, theoretically, you can have more than one beged. You can wear more than one beged with tzitzis. So
correct, but we're talking about within a beged.
Right, but maybe there's no difference there.
Maybe it's a little bit hard because still it's per beged.
But on you can have more than one. So then, who cares if it's part of the same beged?
Maybe you could distinguish. I don't know. I know it could definitely hear saying not that way. Okay. Okay. There is one more shita, and what is the last shita? Did you see this, Tosfos? Did you get this far?
No.
Okay. So tomorrow, this won't take us the whole year, I think.
Just for fun.
What?
Just for
No. First, there's Tosfos. Before I'll give it away for you, but then I want you to read it inside, and we'll do it tomorrow because I do want to really try to understand this because this is the weirdest of the shita. This is the first big Tosfos all the way on Lamaches. Remember that Tosfos that we didn't read all of it? That one? Yes.
Oh yeah.
It's not the whole part. Let me just show you where it is. It's
Rabbi, just to be clear, you gave us on the source sheet. You wrote this Tosfos. And that's it. You didn't tell us where it is.
Good. So now I'm going to help you, and I'll tell you that if you go,
hey, you know this Tosfos?
it's basically. Look, it's a long Tosfos, but it's.
The biggest one.
No, you know what? Try to get through it.
The whole thing
until the Iker is
not a chance.
Fine.
Max of 10.
Fine. Look at from the middle wide lines from Mihu Bisof Elohin and Nachnakin, which is the Gemara in Sanhedrin, where it says Sanhedrin, right? Until V'im Tomar, which is still pretty long. Which is like
I said max 10 lines, Rabbi. 10.
If you want his answer, it's where it starts with Shema, which is like 1, 2, 3, 6 lines or 7 lines into the widest lines. Towards the end of the page is Shema. This is his answer. Okay? So try for that for tomorrow. Until you understand his answer, which is a few lines. But he gives a very fascinating answer, and he says, can you think of a third possibility? So far we've talked about the possibility that it's you can't add at all, or you can add, and then we said it's machlok asugid, we tried to defend them. But what's the third possibility? And this is what I want to explore tomorrow, because it's a bit of an odd possibility.
You can add, but if you do, it's still fine.
No. You can't add. Well, let's think about it. The Gemara in Sanhedrin says you can't add. The Gemara in Menachot says, how do we know that it says you can add? Because it says you can have?
As many as you want.
And there's your mistake.
Well, no, it says you can have double.
Good. So the second possibility is,
You can
the third
add,
possibility?
but with a limit.
The limit is?
Double.
Double.
Why?
Good, that's what we'll do. Okay? I want you to try to understand that point.